Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Track Extra, where we give you tools, tips, and tricks to improve your guard management, retain more customers, win more contracts, and gain the upper hand against your competitors. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
What's up, Silvertrack Nation? Johnny Page here and Chris Anderson on episode number 77 of the Silvertrack Extra, where we're tackling part 4 of our Managing Supervisors series, where today we're going to talk about measuring tasks. So just to give a little bit of background, we are going through this series on the keys to really managing your supervisors. Last episode, I think it was episode number 75 in this series, we talked about the need to have a process in place and that it's super important to make sure that there's a consistent way that we're approaching certain situations and our day-to-day activity, so that way it lays the foundation for us to really measure what's happening and improve what's going on. So Chris, let's just talk about the importance of really measuring what's happening and not making this so subjective, right? There needs to be some sort of objective way to measure whether our employees are doing their job. I think a lot of times it's really obvious for guards in the field, right? But it's not so obvious a lot of times of what we should be measuring for our supervisors. So what are some things that we as a owner and as operations managers in our businesses, what should we be measuring our supervisors or that middle level management? What should we be measuring their performance based on?
Well, we're going to find a lot of that in the meetings, but the meetings that I had, in fairness to them, it was very difficult for them to supervise people in the field that were a mess, okay? And the reason why a lot of the guys in the field were a mess, where there were no shows or didn't have equipment, is because part of the job in the very beginning, from HR to, in other words, getting hired, the hiring process. In other words, are we hiring a guy in the geographic location, or is he coming 100 miles, out of town to work the job? The number two, is he in the proper uniform? He's not wearing his own blue jeans and a windbreaker when he gets there. Does he have the equipment that he needs to do the job? Has he been trained properly, right? All those things come to play, or your guys in the field are just running around just putting out fires, right? So how can he supervise, bring back the data to you to grow or build the business when things are problematic right from the beginning? That's just a start.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times we could sit back and say, well, if our supervisor, if we're not losing any accounts, then the supervisor are doing their job, right? And that's a very bare minimum expectation, because we want our supervisors to really be something that helps us win more business, right? That creates a really high quality experience with our company. They're kind of the face of our company to a lot of our clients and to a lot of our officers, right? If we want to retain the best officers in the industry, it's going to have a lot to do with our supervisors. And if we want to grow and have the best clients in the industry or in our area, it's going to have a lot to do with the supervisors as well. So we need to be measuring their performance based on more than, oh, well, we haven't lost any accounts lately, right?
Yeah, I'm measuring their feedback. If they're not out there bringing information in the field, they're not making contact with the staff or the team out there in a productive way, we're not going to retain the client. I don't expect them to go out, because they're working early mornings, to make contact with my account, the property managers or the contract managers. It's, that's after hours. Those people will be closed. But I do expect them to be in touch with my customer service agent or the salesperson, who should be doing the follow-ups to see how things are going, right? Because they're up during the day. They can make those phone calls and then pass the information to the field team, my field sergeant, so he can get it down to the line personnel, which is our field officers, security personnel. Very, very important. And if that's not being passed on, then how do we improve business if we're not delivering the message? And if there's a problem in the field, what are we doing to bring that message back to the sales guy? So, because he's going to get a phone call from the client about the problem, and why aren't we having that delivered all the way back to home base? Because maybe there's a process we're not doing correctly, right? Maybe we're missing the boat, or maybe we just have a lazy manager that just, decided one day that she's not going to make sure people are, everybody should be wearing an extra large shirt, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it goes back and forth, and it's all part of our previous conversations with these podcasts on how to be a good manager, set up tasks, and get everybody on the same vision, core beliefs and values, and truly what our mission is.
Yeah. I think if we talk about really making sure that our supervisors are doing, are contributing to the success of our company and towards the vision, a lot of this is going to come down to their post inspections, right? That they're not, and you talk about this all the time. We want to make sure they're not just out there having a Coke and a candy bar with their favorite officer. Yeah. Right, that they're actually patrolling on a consistent basis, and they're doing things like they're going to be our pulse as a management staff, as a management team. Our supervisors are going to be the pulse on the operation, on what's really happening. Right. Yep. So if there's a missing link or a weak link, we talk all the time, there's a very fine line between our supervisors being a major benefit and a help for our company, and they could very easily be a distraction and really hurt our company as well if they're not doing the right thing. Yeah. So I think a lot of it comes down to those post inspections. Are we or how can we measure if they're doing quality post inspections? Of course, we're going to see that in the feedback that they bring, and you're probably going to need a system to do that, to collect the information correctly, right, Chris?
John, I just want to say, for those of you who are listening out there, here's what I hear. I got to tell you, every day in this chair from other companies, because we talk to everybody all the way across the U.S. and even out of country about their business. And I hear all the time from the supervisors in the field how they go out there and these guards don't have their proper equipment. They don't have the phones to do the work. They haven't been given the paperwork. They're in their uniform, and the uniform isn't the proper size. And they really, really get discouraged. And you know what most of them tell me is that, we're never going to find a good employee. This is horrible. All the guards, everybody out there is just dumb, right?
Yeah.
I go, dude, that's not the case. It's all part of your organization. You're a team. If somebody's being sent out to the field, and a fine example is, was it just one location or is it the majority of location? No, dude, it's everybody. Everybody just isn't doing their job. And I go, well, that should tell you something. It starts right from as soon as they walk in the door. Right, whether from uniforms to the proper scheduling. You don't want somebody that lives 100 miles away to be working a post, right? So it's a combination of things. But I feel bad, and we're not here to beat up supervisors, but they're not supervisors. They need to be a really good manager in the field, and you need to teach them that. You got to give them the tools to do that. They shouldn't be out there having to babysit and slap people to get them to do their job.
Well, Silvertrack Nation, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors over at Paperless Proposal. Paperless Proposal software was developed to make creating professional business proposals a quick, easy, and enjoyable experience. With Paperless Proposal, you and your team will never again have to go through the frustrating and time-consuming process of creating your business proposals using outdated and time-consuming tools like Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. With Paperless Proposal, you and your team will look forward to creating business proposals. Visit paperlessproposal.com/silvertrack to take advantage of a special offer just for our listeners. Now, let's get back to our featured conversation.
Yeah, in other conversations, you've brought up something that I think that really hurts the supervisor role in a guard company, and that is the tendency when a guard calls off, what's the first thing we do? Get a supervisor out there, right? So we're sending a guy out there in the uniform. Now he's not a supervisor anymore. He's just the one who cleans up the crap, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
And so in order to really, of course, you don't want, you can't let the post go unmanned, but we're going to need to figure out a way to, as a security company, you've got to figure out a way to make sure that that's not your go-to, right? Because you really sacrifice or you hurt his role as a supervisor. It's really, it's just very difficult to keep them in a supervisor role when you're constantly plugging them into areas where they're just cleaning up after guards that create a mess. That's what kind of creates that that frustration with officers. It kind of creates a divide between the officers and the supervisors when the supervisor is the one that always has to step up and clean the mess.
How many times have you heard this when the businesses you were in? I don't want to be a supervisor. And why? Because they know they're just a cleanup person.
Yeah.
They're really sitting the bench, and they're going to have to go work a count because somebody's going to call off on a Friday or Saturday. Or how much time does that supervisor have? overtime, free overtime. Because what's the owners do? Owners tell them, hey, you know what, dude? You're going to be a commander. They'll throw another star or a bar on his shirt, right? To make him look good, to get him out there to do the job. The guys are abused. And pretty soon, guess what that guy does? He leaves.
Yeah, he takes your client list and goes and works for your competitor.
Yep. And all that time you invested in the guy, he's down the road because, you burn him out.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So if we're talking about measuring tasks and really measuring how well our supervisors are performing in the field, we talked about making sure that the post inspections are productive. We've done our previous episode on how to conduct a post inspection, but you'll probably want to also make sure that they're visiting all of the sites, right? That this is a great tool for if you're having a site where there are performance issues, make sure that your supervisors are aware of that and that they're addressing those issues. There needs to be some very clear communication between your daytime management and the supervisors overnight that are in the field.
Yeah, your salespeople should be all over that, as we mentioned before, John. And I don't know if they should be the ones making the phone calls. Your customer service agent should at least be following up the client to get the pulse, to see where you sit. I had a Monday morning board, with all the accounts on it, and we rated them very simple, 1 to 10. Anybody anywhere near a 5 or 6, you better be making a phone call. I need to see what we can do to improve service or find out what the issues are and then get it resolved. And then that was what our week was going to be like with supervision. And again, hopefully my guy could get out there and maintain accounts to retain them versus just going out there trying to, cover posts and solve problems, big point.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chris, when you were managing your supervisors, what were some of the day-to-day tasks that if you're sitting down and saying, hey, is this guy doing the job? What were the areas that you would look at?
Well, I had a weekly meeting. So when I brought everybody in, if they didn't have a book full of, what ifs, questions or answers or problems, I knew exactly what they were doing in the week, right? Because I could base it on the amount of phone calls and problems that I have with my clients, because I spent the majority of the time speaking to my clients to retain my business, because I had so many issues with the guard business during the day. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Everybody out there is going through the same thing. Who keeps the business? The owners. Right? Yeah. You're calling your clients, it's that relationship, because you are going to have a problem. The matter is how you're going to solve that problem for that client and remove that bad taste, right? And make sure that at least doesn't happen immediately the following night. Otherwise, you're down the road. So every week, I wanted to sit with my team. I wanted to hear everybody's input. I expected feedback. I wanted to know what issues we were going to work on first, which ones were critical, contract losing type issues, right? Yeah. And what we were going to do to resolve them. Did anybody need more training? Did we need more people, right? What do we need to do? So I worked on that. If I had a lot of those, I didn't want to overload my team and say, okay, now you need to do this, this, and this. We broke it down. We made it very realistic on what we needed to do that week. If I had some issues that were super critical and things that need to be followed, I would schedule one particular supervisor, one of my management team, I called them my little special enforcement bureau, right, to go after that problem and get it back to neutral, right? Get it back into the safe zone. And then once we had everything back in the safe zone, then I bring the team back and then we start working back on the business again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great process. And, this comes down to really having that team. Like, that's what we're after through this series, is giving you the tools to assemble a team that can work together as a unit to go out and make sure that you're retaining the clients, you're putting a process in place that's attractive to new customers, your business is functioning at a level that can handle more business and retain the business you're making. So all of these are fantastic steps to be taking, especially for this critical piece of your business in your supervisors. So I think, unless there's anything else that you feel like we need to address, Chris, we're going to leave a lot of this. The next episode, we'll be talking about managing behavior and making sure that the personalities and the attitudes of everyone in a business are all contributing to a positive work environment, attracting and creating the company culture that really attracts quality officers. So we're going to do that in episode 78. Anything else to add here, Chris, as we talk about managing supervisors, managing their day-to-day tasks, and really measuring their performance?
No, the only thing I want to say is just, make sure that your managers have all the necessary tools to do their job. That's the biggest thing. Whether it's a handbook or your policies, make sure they understand that and have an idea where you're going. That's in the very beginning. We're going to cover a lot, as you mentioned before, John. In fact, this has been such a the big podcast for us, right? We could probably stay on this one for months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a problem that a lot of companies have. I think one thing you mentioned a little bit earlier was that it's the owners that keep the business because something bad is going to happen. And I think a great selling point for a lot of companies out there who do step up and take care of the issue when an issue arises is to say basically that everyone can be there when things are going well, right? But it takes a quality company to step up and be there when things go wrong, and to just share that in the sales process. Like, hey, things do happen. We're not going to sit here and sugarcoat things and say we have the best guards and the most experience and yada da da da, whatever it is. Just say, look, when things go wrong, we're there. We're here to clean up the mess. We're not going to be there. We're a partner in the business. We're not going to be here today and gone tomorrow. We're here to stick things out with you. Well, if we make a mistake, we'll fess up and own up to it. A lot of times that could be what wins you a contract. So that type of mindset not only helps set the tone for your management staff, but I think it'll impact the sales process as well.
Yep. And the main thing is it's okay if something goes wrong. That happens. But what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
That's the key. What are you going to do about it? And it's a great way to learn. You can learn from them.
So, guys, if you want a detailed article on everything we covered today, the different tasks that we can be measuring, and some of the articles we mentioned that have previously been published, head over to silvertracksoftware.com/77 for episode number 77. We've got a detailed article there. You can also subscribe to our podcast that will get you a weekly email with all of the podcasts that we publish each week, along with tons of free resources like ebooks, webinars, calculators, kits, buying guides, the whole deal. So you'll want to sign up for that. Make sure you subscribe for the podcast. And until next time, my name's Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
This is a Silver Track Extra, and we'll talk to you soon.